Greetings and salutations, family. It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the awesome and amazing LDBC, Lions Den Broadcasting Community. Shout out to the Louisiana All-American Sports Network. High school football here in Louisiana is getting ready to kick off. I look forward to continuing my partnership with them this football season in terms of doing commentary for the radio broadcast. And, hopefully we can expand and do bigger and better things. Also, shout out to M Vision Photography and Video. We definitely going to be doing a lot of work this upcoming football season, this 2025 football season for the Southern University Jaguars. Definitely look forward to that. If you need videography, photography, hit him up, Marlon Harvey on Facebook. And lastly, shout out to the greatest university in the world, the Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. In this particular video, it's going to be a prelude because I got a live stream coming up on Tuesday night talking about the MEAC Swag Challenge. Well, I call it the Swag MEAC Challenge because in my personal opinion, the swag should be first. But that's another story for another day. But even with that being said, this particular video, I'm talking about Southern University. What do they have to do to be successful and have the 2025 season that I want them to have and that Jaguar Nation wants them to have? There's a lot of things Southern University is going to need to do this particular season. Now, let me address some of the, the criticism and some of the critics and the naysayers in terms of saying Southern University is overhyped. Like I said on HBCU Fanatics, and if you have not done so already, check it out on my brother Jared Love Green channel, HBCU Fanatics on Friday night. It's going to be moving up a little bit, but we definitely going to have our first episode for this 2025 season coming up, leading up to week 0. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But for the exception of teams like UAPB and Mississippi Valley, on whatever level of football we're talking about, pretty much everybody has hope this time of year. Everybody's undefeated. Everybody believes that they're going to have a successful season. Now, if the season progresses, basically the strong is separated from the weak. And you see the weak teams for who they are, and you see the strong teams for who they are, and you have the middle of the pack. So that happens as the season progresses. Now, many people think Southern University is the exact same team from last year. Like, they won a lot of close games. They won games they should have won, but they didn't beat the big teams like the Jackson State, the FAMU, who else? Jackson State, FAMU. They didn't win the big games, right? They got smashed by Nicholls State, which was horrible, and they lost a game to McNeese State that they led like 85% of the game. So it's like when they step outside of the SWAC, they struggle. And when they play the elite level HBCU teams, they're going to struggle. So many people think, in my personal opinion, I think they're going to start out 5-1. However, many individuals think they're going to start out 1-5, 1-6. So, of course, some of the big areas that people point out is, first of all, in terms of the offensive line. Now, shout out to my brother Jay Good. We talked about this, like literally during the SWAC championship game in our group chat in terms of the Southern Baller Show Collective. And basically what Jay Good was saying in terms of up front on both sides of the ball, in terms of skill players, minus the quarterback position, for the most part, Southern might have been right there with Jackson State, but the real separation, even though Jackson State had a great wide receiving core, I think Jacoby and Morgan, just like a lot of other quarterbacks in the SWAC, he's not like elite level compared to quarterbacks of yesteryear, and that's fine. I think as long as he's competent and serviceable, that's all Jackson State needs him to be. But I just don't see how he's SWAC Offensive Player of the Year, in my personal opinion. That's my personal opinion. Just like I didn't see it with Miles last year in terms of Miles Crawley from Grambling. But with that being said, you know, Southern University offensive line was a huge concern for people. Now, they bringing back 45 starters to me, which is a good thing. But a lot of people felt like, Jay Good in particular, he felt like Southern University's offensive line really couldn't match up to Jackson State's defensive line and vice versa. So many people feel like, especially with losing 3 starters on the defensive line with Willie Miles, Devin Cotton, and Darius Harry. So many people feel like Southern up front on both sides of the ball not going to be able to compete with Jackson State, not going to be able to compete with North Carolina Central, and not going to be able to compete with FAMU and a lot of these, teams that they really hadn't been able to beat and get over the hump. I think that's a valid concern, but in terms of the defense, I think Kelby Givens is definitely the catalyst player defensively. And like I've said in the past, Southern has been able to replace. They've been able to replace Taj Brown. They've been able to replace Jordan Lewis, Jason Dumas. So, they've been able to replace multiple defensive linemen up and down the defensive line. And, many people didn't think they was going to be able to get a defensive lineman better than Jordan Lewis. And truthfully speaking, Kelby Givens is better than Jordan Lewis. And, that's just kind of honest to God truth. So, I'm not concerned about the defensive line. I'm not concerned about the defense in general. Many people think, Southern got 4 or 5 returning starters, whatever the case may be. But what about those other players? And that's the thing about it. The defense has carried Southern the last 2 years. So I'm not concerned about the defense. I'm not concerned about the defensive line. In terms of the offensive line, I really think, the offensive line, like I said, they got 4 returning starters. I think they have the chemistry and their continuity. But I think the thing that's going to take them up to the next level, first and foremost, having a competent quarterback. Not just a competent quarterback, in my opinion. I think Jalen Woods, barring injury, I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He reminds me a lot of Austin Howard. I don't think he's as good as Austin Howard, but he reminds me a lot of Austin Howard. I think if he can, max out in terms of his fullest potential and stay healthy the entire season, I could easily see Southern winning the Celebration Bowl. And then in addition to that, in terms of the backs, I talked about this on HBCU Fanatics the other night. Honestly, when Grambling had Martez Carter and Devontae Kincaid, those 2 players, in terms of that combination at quarterback and running back, it elevated Grambling's offensive line play so much. People don't realize Grambling's offensive line wasn't really that good. I might not have played college ball. I played high school ball. I'm a middle school offensive coordinator and offensive line coach. And truthfully speaking, I remember during the Bayou Classic that year, at one point, Martez Carter and Kincaid ended up getting nicked up and coming out the game. And you could see the drastic drop-off in terms of both quarterback play and running back play. But not only that, it exposed the offensive line. I think Devontae Kincaid constantly running around and extending plays and finding open receivers. It kind of hit the deficiencies in Grambling's offensive line. And in addition to that, I think Martez Carter just being a dynamic running back at Grambling, it also hit a lot of deficiencies. I don't think their blocking was as good as people think. The reason why I bring that up is because, having Trey Holly transfer from LSU, having Mike Franklin transferring from Jacksonville State, having Princeton Cahey transfer from Louisiana Tech, bringing in Amarian Asbury. You already had Jason Gabriel and Barry Remo. I'm not going to lie, these running backs that Southern have, I think are going to be dynamic running backs, especially Trey Holly and Mike Franklin. I think they're really going to be something special. And truthfully speaking, I think they're going to elevate Southern University's offensive line. So I think the quarterback play and the running back play is going to elevate the offensive line. And in addition to that, Southern wide receivers dropped a lot of passes last year. And I think more than anything, that was due to the inconsistent play at the quarterback position. But once Jalen Woods settled in those last few games of the season, they didn't drop as many passes. So, having Darren Morris kind of leading that group, you got Malachi Sticks Jackson, you got Kobe Brown. And then in addition, at tight end, you got Fuller Dupree, you got, you got two good tight ends. You got excellent wide receiving core. You got a good stable of running backs. They just added another quarterback. And, you got three, in my opinion, competent and better than average quarterbacks in the SWAC. So I think all of these things is a recipe for Southern to be successful. But I think the other thing Southern is going to need to do is, first and foremost, even though I'm a coach, I'm not as big on analytics as a lot of, people. But to me, I base a lot of what I say in my analysis and my assessment of things. I base that a lot, not just on analytics, but the eye test. And as a diehard member of Jaguar Nation, Southern University has been one of the most penalized teams in the SWAC as far back as I can remember. So Southern definitely going to need to clean up the penalties big time if they want to be successful and hold up their trophy at the end of the year in Atlanta. So you definitely got to clean up the penalties big time. You can't be one of the most penalized teams in the SWAC year in and year out. In addition to that, Southern University, they definitely going to need to not turn the football over. I think that's one thing, not only having a better quarterback and having better quarterback play is going to elevate the team, but in addition to that, not turning the football over. Southern, to me, has kind of been synonymous for turning the ball over, but not only turning the ball over, but more importantly, turning the football over in a red zone is like one of the worst areas, to turn the football over on the entire field. Southern definitely cannot turn the ball over. Another thing, too, they're going to need to take the ball away. Even though Southern University, the last few years, their defense has been great, my personal opinion. I think they're going to need to take the ball away even more than they have in the past. So, these are a few things they could do. Minimize the penalties, minimize the turnovers, take the ball away more. These just are a few of the things that they could do throughout the course of the year just to be successful. And I think these are some key points. And of course, I talk about the same basic things as I do all the time in terms of from a defensive standpoint. Just keep being a good defense. Being one of the better defenses in the SWAC. You got Kelby Gibbons, you got Herman Bristol III, you got Ratio Johnson, you got Vince Page. Those are like four foundational players. You got Mike Jones. You got other players that's probably going to become household names this season. So, of course, you got to play good defense. But offensively, Southern really has to kind of get back to what they used to be in the 90s in terms of being physical and nasty up front. And just being able to lean on people, move teams against their will up front, especially on the offensive side of the ball. You got to be able to run the ball. But more than anything, they definitely need better quarterback play. I think even the last few years, if they'd had just a competent quarterback, I think they would have been a lot further along than they were. But, you got to dominate up front on both sides of the ball. The quarterback play has to go up and be much better. I'm confident in Jalen Woods, compared to, no disrespect, but it is what it is, to Noah Biden. Noah Biden he left a lot to be desired, to say the least. And the same thing with Harold Blood. Harold Blood left a lot to be desired, to say the least. And even Bashawn McCray, even though they went to the SWAC championship game with him, I said it, if you don't believe me, go look back to that season. Glenn Buck McDaniel clearly was the better choice at quarterback. He was extremely inconsistent the year before, but he had some good games. He had some middle-of-the-road games. He had some bad games. But he really just kind of was starting to come into his own. And for Dooley to play Bashawn McCray when it was obvious Bashawn McCray was struggling at times, especially against, Texas Southern and Jackson State. For you to just be stubborn and stick with that guy, it's baffling to me. And even though I don't think Jalen Woods going to struggle, I think he's going to do well and he's going to excel. It's going to be interesting to see if Jalen Woods struggle at any point. How quick a hook is Coach Turner Drees and Coach Mark Frederick willing to give him. I think that was part of the issue Southern had the last couple of years. I felt like they stuck with Noah way too long. They stuck with Zay way too long. They didn't give Jalen Woods a chance sooner to do what he could do. And the year before that, they stuck with Harold Blood way too long. And the year before that, it was obvious that Glenn Above McDaniel was the better choice of quarterback. And Dooley stuck with Bashawn McCray. So that's another thing that Coach Graves and staff, I believe he's going to get off to a great start. I believe he's going to do well. My only concern is him being injured. But just say if Jalen Woods struggles, do you have a long leash? Does he have a long leash like Noah had last year, like Harold Blood the year before, and like Bashawn McCray the year before that? Or is, Coach Graves and Coach Frederick be like, all right, hey, let's see what McCoy could do. And if he struggle, hey, what Dylan Compton can do. So at the end of the day, I think these are some key points in terms of Southern is going to need to minimize the penalties, minimize the turnovers, take the ball away a lot, have great quarterback play. The backs and skill players going to need to step up offensively, dominate up front on both sides of the ball, and just keep being a great defensive team that they've always been. And lastly, the special teams, I think at this point is the biggest question mark. Kenny Lee family left a lot to be desired from a punter standpoint last year. I think if he could be what Ruben Beauplant's Mr. Goldenfoot was the year before that, I think Southern would be straight. And in addition to that, what is Nathan Zimmer going to be from a kicking standpoint? And not only that, can you find a dynamic punt and kick returner like a Fred Bailey, like a Kenyatta Sparks, like a Ezra Landry, like a Willie Quinn? Can you find one of those guys, from a punt and kick returning standpoint, kind of the way Jackson State has in Travis Terrell Jr.? And I think lastly, how is Southern going to be able to overcome adversity when they hit those rough patches in those rough spots? But that's it for this extended video. If you find any value in this video, please like the video, share the video, comment in the comment section, subscribe to the channel. Also, click the notification bell so you can be alerted anytime I post any new videos. Also, go check out my brother, Jared Lovin Green, on his channel, HBCU Fanatics. We had a great episode Friday night. I'll focus primarily on Southern on my channel, but we kind of went around and swiped the way C. Wells does on his channel. And speaking of C. Wells, coming up this Wednesday, we're going to have our season preview on his channel for Southern University. And in addition to that, we're going to preview Week 0 with North Carolina Central. And we also going to do another episode to start off the season, Week 0, HBCU Fanatics. So come over to my brother channel, Jared Lovin Green. So it's going to be an action-packed week this week. I'm going to do a live stream Tuesday, C. Wells Wednesday, HBCU Fanatics on Thursday or Friday. Just check it out. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I think I'm like right around 790 subscribers. So if you have not done so already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, like the content, you know what I'm saying? We're trying to get the channel over 1,000 subscribers so I can bring you more dope and great content. And lastly, go check out my other LDBC family members. My brother Brent Fox on his channel with his show Is Just Me starring Brent Fox. Also, my brother 7A Sports TV has 2 channels. His primary channel is 7A Sports TV. His backup channel is the No 304 Show. My brother Cadillac Red on his channel, Supreme Beast Boxing Talk, you dig. My sister, the beloved Queen Shavalaya, on her channel. Go check her out. And also my brother Growing with Soul. Man, check out all the LDBC family. I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace and blessings. And go Jags.